let's get into our AFC North. Now, when it comes to the AFC North, we got you covered with recently married Mr. Chris Caldwell out there on the East Coast, Baltimore, Maryland. There's a lot of chatter that his fantasy football teams have slipped since he's gotten married. But he is the king of fantasy football. He is the other half of our fantasy football show that we put out weekly. Mr. Chris Caldwell, welcome. How you doing tonight? And talk to us about this AFC North.
Thanks, Mike. I'm back in fantasy football, by the way. I was 8-1 last week, 7-2 this week. I'm back. I'm focused. I'm married. I'm back in the game. I just had to take a hiatus, but I'm fully back. But AFC North, I will say, we were all talking before the season. This was a popular pick to be one of the strongest, if the not strongest, divisions in football, and we absolutely have not seen it. Total duds so far, in my point of view, from Bengals, Browns, and Steelers. And Steelers have all but kind of thrown in the towel on this year. Trading Chase Claypool, going to their rookie quarterback. They're in, full rebuild mode, which we kind of expected, but I still thought they were going to be, around 500, giving some teams some tough games, but they're just not it this year. But the Bengals starting to hit stride. We'll see. I mean, they have the hardest remaining strength of schedule in the division by far, and they're already a game back and a loss to the Ravens. So I think these odds that they're showing for the division champ is making a lot of sense. Ravens already have that one win against them, and they have the easiest schedule in the NFL for the rest of the year. They have a bye week this week. They've been relatively banged up the last 3 weeks, and they're 3-0. And the players that they're getting back after the bye is just outstanding. I mean, we just traded for Roquan Smith, arguably best middle linebacker in football. We're getting Tyus Bowser back. He just played last week in New Orleans. David Ajabo, our promising young rookies, coming back. And we're going to get our free safety Marcus Williams back in Week 11. So the defense is going to be extremely stout. Offense looking suspect slightly. Rashad Bateman out for the year. But Mark Andrews will be coming back off injury after the bye. Isaiah Likely's really emerged as kind of a slot receiver, tight end too. And, we signed the ageless Deshaun Jackson. What could go wrong? But as long as we can figure out and patch together our wide receiver core, I think we're going to really start rolling on the running game. Offensive line has played, I think, pretty outstanding so far this year. Rookie Tyler Linderbaum's just been holding it down at center. J.K. Dobbins is going to be back in a week or two. So things are looking up. I personally don't see how the Ravens can go worse than 12-5. They're hitting their bye at a perfect time with a lot of injuries, and they're going to be getting a pretty healthy team after the bye with the easiest rest of schedule. I just don't see how they relinquish the division since one of their wins is against the Bengals and the Browns. So that's the way I see it. The interesting team to me in this division is the Browns. If they can squeak together a few more wins before Deshaun Watson gets back, I think they're not really a threat for the division, but I think they could be a wild card threat in the AFC just because the team is very talented. They have a lot of nice pieces. For some reason, they're just not putting it together. They probably should have beat the Ravens. They were just one offensive pass interference call away from beating the Ravens. And just one more thing about the Ravens. I think they have to be – so they're 6-3 right now. 2 of their wins were one play away from being losses, but all 3 of their losses were one play away from being wins. Could be 9-0. Could be 4-5. It's like the oddest team in the NFL right now to me. But I think they're getting healthy at the right time. The bye was at the right time. Time to bring this thing home. I think that it would win the division comfortably. The last game of the year is in Cincinnati. It will not matter. Ravens win this one walking away.
Good stuff. Let me throw it to the other gentleman on the show who has a lot of interest in this division. Last but not least, Mr. Riku Mukherjee. And Rick is our utility guy. I mean, he can talk any sport there is. You just throw some random sport, the guy will get on and he'll talk like, he's been living the sport for all his life. But he does our fantasy football show with Chris. He does our 5 is 6 show with the golf show with Tony. We get him on here to talk football. Any sport you want to talk about, throw it at him. He'll have something for you. But Rick, tell me what you think about what Chris just said about this team. Obviously, it scares the hell out of me that the Ravens have the easiest schedule through the rest of the season. They're starting to get better. It's, in my opinion, it's ugly football to watch. I hate watching it, but they're damn good. Tell us what you think.
Well, I mean, if you want, I can talk about the NFL, or I can talk about some esports too. If you want some League of Legends, if you want me to get into that, I can talk about that. Some Chinese ping pong, I can talk about that. No, but yeah, I'm gonna echo what Chris said here. I think the Ravens are going to win the division. There's a reason why they're one game ahead in the standings and they're minus 600 to win the division. It's because of the rest of their schedule. Now, I know a lot of the talk this year has been about the Bills and the Chiefs and all that stuff, but I mean, in reality, guys, I mean, what would the conversation be here if the Ravens were 9-0 instead of 6-3? And they could have easily been 9-0 if they didn't blow double-digit leads in the second half against the Bills, the Giants, and the Dolphins. So if they had not blown those games, they would be 9-0. They would have a stranglehold in this division. That minus 600 would be like minus 6,000 instead of minus 600. But yeah, the rest of the schedule is in all honesty, like barring injury, is a cakewalk. There should be a favorite every single game the rest of the year, except maybe at Cincinnati week 18, if that game even matters. And if it doesn't, then who cares? So I, like Chris said, 12-5. I mean, obviously there's going to be probably a couple fluky losses here and there, but 12-5 or 13-4 is probably what I'm thinking. And they're either going to be a 1 seed, maybe a 2 seed going into the playoffs, kind of depending on what happens with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs out there. So I think they're in good shape. But I will throw a little caveat in there and say that what are they going to do when they get to the playoffs? That's the thing that worries me. They have one win in the playoffs under Lamar, and the rest of it's been pretty ugly. And I just think when it comes down to January football with the guy who we have at offensive coordinator and the guy who we have at head coach, I'm not too thrilled about those two guys. I just don't know if they can win playoff games in January. And if they do, great. If they make the Super Bowl, great. But I'll be the first person in line to buy tickets to the Super Bowl, and I'll go to the game in Glendale this year. But I just don't see that happening. They haven't sniffed an AFC championship in 10 years. And it's really depressing when it comes to that as a Ravens fan, especially when we demand excellence. So we'll see. I do think they're going to win the division. I think the Bengals are in line to potentially get a wild card, depending on how they can, do these next few games without Jamar Chase until Jamar Chase comes back. So I think they will be in a fight to be a wild card, especially because I think that the Jets are not going to make the playoffs. I know we're not talking about the AFC East, but I think the Jets are completely fraudulent. They have a terrible quarterback. This league is based on quarterback play, and I think Zach Wilson does not belong in the NFL, especially as a starting quarterback. So I think because of that, yes, they have a good defense, and yes, they have good coaching, but the quarterback play is going to stymie the Jets down the road. And I think the Bengals could sneak into a wild card spot especially if they string together some wins. But yeah, the Browns are going to be out of it by the time Deshaun comes around, and the Steelers are terrible. So this is a two horse race in this division, and I think the Bengals and the Ravens are going to take it down just based on their schedule.
I just wanted to add a stat that I meant to say when I was talking about it. Ravens are the first team since 2011 to have a 10-point lead in every single game through the first 9 games. 6-3 record. Me and Rick keep saying it. It should be at least a game or two better. Had some bad luck. Gassed out our defense a little bit in the fourth quarter, like in the Bills game, like in the Dolphins game. 28-point fourth quarter for the Dolphins against us at home. But yeah, I think we've learned from those and moved on and get the ugly losses out of the way early. So, Ravens are a top 3 contender in the AFC, no doubt about it. If you don't agree, then you're lying to yourself.
I love it. So I'm looking at the strength of schedule here. Cleveland has the 20th strength of schedule left. They do play Buffalo. We play We play the Vikings this week, and then we play Cleveland at home, and then they have the Ravens, the Dolphins, the Bengals. I don't see, Chris, how you see them even having a prayer. When does Deshaun Watson come back? Is it week 11 or week 10?
He misses 2 more weeks, I believe. Two more weeks, and then they have their bye, right? I think that's how it works.
Okay. All right. So I agree with you, Rick, there. I just don't see Cleveland having the magic. We'll see, though.